Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time. I just wanted to sit down today and film a video. I'm sitting right up close and personal with the camera, and I just wanted to chat to you guys as if you're just like my friends, because you are. It's terrible lighting outside and I just got out of the shower with wet hair, and I was like, you know what, that stuff really doesn't matter because this is a topic that's much more important than those menial things. Today I'm going to be talking about my physical and mental transformation. I posted a photo, well, a couple of photos on Instagram probably a week ago, just illustrating sort of journey I've taken in the past few years with my mental and physical health, and you guys sent the most beautiful messages and an overwhelming amount of support, and also quite a lot of questions. As I've always said, for my YouTube channel, I want to make fun videos and I want to do all that fun, silly makeup, hair, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, what I'm most passionate about is spreading awareness and talking about topics that I'm very passionate about. And one of the main topics, that is mental health, and more specifically eating disorders, because that's where I can talk from experience. So I do want to start off by saying, if you do have a past, or if you are currently going through an eating disorder or struggling with your mental health, please feel free to turn off now. The word triggered is thrown around a lot. I don't know if that's what it does, but if talking about eating disorders or anything like that makes it worse for you, then please don't watch this. I'm only trying to help, so the last thing I want to do is make it worse for anyone. Of course, I won't be mentioning like numbers or anything like that in the video. I just wanted to warn people in case you want to turn off now. So if you're still here, I'm going to start off with just a really brief timeline of what I went through, and then I'm going to go into some questions that you guys want to know. I could talk about this topic for days, so I'm going to try my best to keep it short and simple, and I'm sorry if I miss out details that you guys want to know, but I'll try go over all of the important things. So I think it all really began when I got home from my trip to Europe with my best friend Marnie. We went when we were 18 years old, and we got back and I put on a bit of weight, as most people do in Europe. I was eating pizza and pasta and, you know, all the fun stuff, and I decided I just wanted to lose the weight I'd put on. It was not a big deal. I just wanted to get back into exercising and eating healthily, and that's what I did. And for ages I sort of slowly lost a bit of weight. I wasn't even really losing weight. I was just sort of pretending like I was eating healthier. And that was totally fine. And then towards the end of that year, so that would have been 2013, I started taking it a bit more seriously, but again, nothing too full on. And then I landed the role in Neighbours at the end of 2013. And the more I've looked back, the more that was sort of the incentive for me to really knuckle down and, in my head, just get healthy. That's all I wanted to do, and that's really what I want to point out, because so often, nearly always, eating disorders or disordered eating starts off in a really positive and healthy way, and you don't set out to get sick, you set out to do the opposite. And so for me, that was the case. I just wanted to make sure I felt confident and in shape as soon as we started filming. And so I took it a bit more seriously. I was going to the gym every day, I was eating really well, and I lost quite a lot of weight. And by the time I started filming Neighbours, which was in February of 2014, I was quite thin. And I am a small person, I'm 5'2", I'm tiny, but I'm naturally quite muscly. I grew up dancing, like I have curves, I'm not stick thin, and I was looking quite thin, but I didn't look ill, and no one was particularly worried yet. I was getting compliments, I was like, feeling myself. And slowly yet surely, I started eating a little bit less, even without realizing at first. I was like, oh, I'm not that hungry, I don't need that extra thing, or I would exercise just slightly more, or I would have to exercise every day. That started to become a thing, the exact same thing every day, or I'd have to eat the exact same thing every day. And no one really thought twice about this, because I am naturally a very routine person my whole life. Even growing up at school, I had the same lunch every day. I love routine, I love sticking to the same thing. So my family at this point still didn't think too much of it. However, as time went on, I kept losing more and more weight, and eventually it started getting to a point where I didn't look that healthy anymore. My face was looking a bit gaunt, on camera even I was looking a bit unhealthy, and people started to pick up on things. I was still eating, at no point was I not eating at all, because I knew that I had to eat, but I was eating very small portions. I was making sure I never ate more than anyone else, which I found out later on is a very common symptom of an eating disorder. And slowly yet surely, my eating disorder began. And what I really wanted to point out is by the time I was in the depths of it, it was too late to just switch it off. It happened so quickly and in such a blur that I don't even remember how it happened, but it was there, and suddenly these voices in my head were controlling my life and everything I did, and all I cared about was how much I'd eaten or when I was going to exercise next, and that's it. And I was working a full-time job and doing a million other things, and yet still that is all I cared about. And that's why an entire year of my life is kind of a blur, because I had one focus on my mind and everything else was sidelined. So it was blocked out and I can't even remember a lot of that year, which is so scary, but it just shows you how much my mind had taken over. I began to realize I was quite sick, and the last person that you want to admit that to is yourself. But once I did, it was a really long time before I admitted it to anyone else. And I still remember the night that my mum walked into my room and we were talking about something completely different, and I broke down, and it was probably the most liberating feeling of my life, just admitting to someone that I'd lost control. I'd focused so much on being in control that I'd completely lost it. And at this point, it was no longer about how I looked anymore. It stopped being about how I looked a long time before that. It was completely numbers. I would weigh myself constantly. I'd be scared to eat foods that weighed a lot just in case they'd put on weight on the scale. Like, it was, looking back now, it's mental to me. But again, these are such common things, and the more I read up about eating disorders and stuff, the more I realized, oh, they are so similar in so many ways, and yet slightly different for each person. So fast forward, it took a lot of months for me to come to terms with this, and as soon as I admitted I had a problem, I was sent to a psychologist. I tried a couple, finally found a woman who was a nutritionist and psychologist, and she was perfect for me because she gave me the cold hard facts. I didn't need someone to, like, you know, cotton wool me and tell me it was all going to be okay. I needed someone to tell me that I was going to lose my job, I was going to potentially lose my life, I needed to go into hospital if I didn't change my life around. And I knew how lucky I was to be working on a contract on one of the biggest shows in Australia, and it was my lifelong dream, and here I was going to throw it away. And neighbours were so supportive. They gave me Fridays off so I could go to my therapy sessions. They were incredible. And unfortunately, I was playing a character with an eating disorder, which I do want to point out, it had nothing to do with the fact that I was sick. It was written into the storyline before I got the role, and I didn't even know about it. It was completely coincidental, and they were so adamant on the fact that I had to get better if I wanted to continue working, because it looked so bad on everyone's behalf. So I do want to just say that neighbours were always beautiful and kind and so supportive of what I was going through. I went to a psychologist and I started on a meal plan, and I cheated for many months pretending I was eating things I wasn't. It's all part of the disorder. And eventually, I don't know what it was, and this was such a commonly asked question, like, what made you change? What? I don't know. I woke up one morning and I was done. I was so sick of being sick. I was so sick of not living. I couldn't remember the last time I'd smiled or laughed genuinely. I just wasn't myself, and I just wanted to be normal again. And that's not to say I woke up that morning and I was better. I woke up many mornings, probably for months, wanting that, and then during the day that second voice would kick in. And if you've had an eating disorder, or you have one, you'll know what I mean. You have that one voice that says, you know, don't eat that, you know, that's a terrible idea. And you have the other one that's like, you can do this, you need to do this to get better. And it's a constant battle, and it's exhausting, and it just takes time. That's all it was for me. I'm lucky. My whole process was about a year from when I, you know, started losing weight to when I started getting help and gaining weight again. But God, that battle between the two voices is something I'll never forget. And I have journal entries and I read them back, and I remember so vividly. It was like, I felt like I was going crazy because I'd be so proud of myself for eating, and then 10 minutes later this guilt would come in, and it was heart-wrenching. But over time, that one voice got a little bit quieter every day, and I started to find other things I was passionate about. I put in more effort with friends. I started realizing that I could date boys. I had ignored everyone for a year, and suddenly I realized there was a world out there that wasn't just what I was eating or what exercise I was doing. So basically, it took quite a while, but I started gaining weight again, and as a lot of people recovering from eating disorders do, I put on quite a lot of weight. Now, I want to be very clear. The point I was at after my eating disorder, where I put on weight, I was so much healthier than I was during my eating disorder. Yes, I wasn't eating healthily and I wasn't exercising, but I wasn't morbidly obese. I was just above my healthy weight range. I was much healthier than I was previously, so I do want to make sure that's very clear. All I'm saying is I still didn't feel like I'd found contentment or health or happiness, because I'd just gone from one extreme to the other. I had starved my body for so long that it was like, please just give me everything, and I did. And I'm so glad that I did that, because if I didn't do that, I don't know if I ever would have got to the point where I am today. I needed to fix my body. I needed to refuel it. I needed to give it everything that I had stopped giving it for so long. And so yes, I put on quite a lot of weight. I stopped exercising. I focused on friends. I focused on work. I fell in love with my job. I fell in love with my family again. And that time for me was really important. And it wasn't until months and months later that I started feeling like I needed to find some sort of balance and medium, which is not really in my vocabulary. Even nowadays, balance is not what I'm good at. I'm great at routine and I have amazing willpower, but trying to get me to do something that's in moderation is not that easy. So I needed to work out a way to start getting better. I actually decided to go on a fitness retreat with a company called Active Escapes, and I thought this would be a really good idea because everything else was controlled for me. And I had done a health retreat while I had my eating disorder, and that was a huge instigator in me getting better because it meant me releasing control, letting other people take over. So they controlled what exercises we did during the day, so I couldn't do too much. They controlled what we ate, so I always had meals. I didn't want to be the weird one not eating. And through that, I think I was there for 10 days. I realized that, oh, it is possible to exercise and eat healthy without being completely obsessed and besotted by it. Like, I saw all these other people around me and they would just like go out for drinks in the night and then they get up and train in the morning, and I was like, oh, I mean, I hate alcohol, but like dessert, yes, and then you can still get up and exercise in the morning. Unbelievable. For me, that was like mind-blowing. Like, oh, it doesn't mean you're throwing away all of your hard work. So that was sort of the instigator, and from there I sort of started exercising again and finding new ways of exercise. So when I was sick, I would just run on a treadmill. That's it. I wouldn't change it up. I wouldn't do strength training. I would literally run on a treadmill for an exact amount of time or exact amount of calories every day. So I started realizing that like HIIT training or boxing, and that's when I fell in love with all the different types of training that I do now, because suddenly it was not about burning calories anymore. It was about, oh my God, how fit and strong can I get? And that's still sort of what my obsession is today, but it's a much healthier one, because nowadays I don't focus on what I look like, I focus on what I can do. And I just want to be clear, I have my days every month where I feel crappy about myself. Just the other night, I was lying in bed crying for no reason other than like I just didn't feel good about myself. And that's totally normal. That doesn't mean that my eating disorder is creeping back or anything like that. It means I'm human and I have self-doubt and I'm insecure, and to an extent I think I might always have this little voice that tells me that my body's not good enough, but nowadays I ignore it because I know it's bullshit, and I know that I don't see what everyone else sees. And one day I really hope that I do look in the mirror and go, fuck yeah. And sometimes when there's good lighting I do, but to me it's not what matters anymore. What matters is that I'm so healthy, I'm fit, I'm strong. I can walk into any exercise class and be like, I got this. And I've worked hard for it. Like, I'm proud of myself because I didn't starve myself. I fueled myself and I worked hard and I got to where I am at today. In saying all of that, I hope that gives like sort of not so brief history of how I've got to the point where I am now. You guys wrote in so many questions and I can't answer them all, or I will be here all day and you'll be watching this all day. So I'm just gonna go over a few that I feel like I didn't completely answer. Someone asked, did I ever go into treatment? And no, I didn't. I was lucky enough to catch the eating disorder when I did, I guess you could say, and I took control of it before I needed to do that. I probably was at the point where I needed to go into hospital, but that's where I really got scared and turned it around because I didn't want to lose my job and all the amazing opportunities I had. Did it make it harder being in the spotlight? Yeah, probably, because it's one thing to go through an eating disorder on your own. It's another thing to go through an eating disorder with the entire world watching you. And a lot of people had no idea what I was going through. So not many people said anything when I was super thin. I think they just assumed that's what I naturally looked like. But when I started putting on weight, and quite a bit of weight, I made the mistake of reading comments a couple of times, and that was a really bad idea, and I'm lucky that I was strong enough to ignore it, because people can be cruel when they don't know what you're going through. So just keep that in mind if you ever get the urge to comment on someone's appearance. Just remember, you don't really know what people are going through, and it can have a pretty detrimental effect. So yeah, it did make it really hard being in the spotlight, but it's also what saved me in a way, I think. Did you ever think about giving up becoming physically healthy? Hell yeah. As I was starting to exercise and stuff again, I was like, oh God, I just want to eat my chips and chocolate, and I've been through all this before. I worked hard enough. I don't need to do this. And I realized that that was not going to make me happy either. I mean, chocolate and chips do make me happy, but ultimately being healthy is what was going to make me happy. So there are times still when I wake up and I don't want to go to the gym, and some days I don't, and that's totally fine. Also, this lighting's great. Let's change another 5 times in the next 10 seconds. Cheers, Melbourne! Do you think you can be cured from eating disorders? I don't know if it's sort of illness that has a cure. I do think you can fully recover. I know a lot of people say you can't, and I don't think I'm at the point where I'm like, don't ever think about food and my body image. So I don't know if people would consider me even fully recovered, but I do think it's possible to live a very normal, functional life. And unfortunately these days, I think it's very rare to not care at all about your body image or your appearance, which sucks, but I think that's true. So I think, yeah, to an extent, I think you can be fully recovered. Yeah. Did people doubt you? No. And that was the most important thing for me. I think if people had doubted me, it would have made things a lot harder. I'm very lucky that from day one, my family, my sisters, my mum, my dad, they knew that I'd get through it. It was never a question of if, it was just a question of when, and they knew I was the only one who could make that decision. So they struggled and they tried so hard to help me without pushing me. But not for a second did anyone doubt me. They knew how strong I was, and they knew that I was smart enough to get through it. But I was so grateful for my family at that time, because I don't know how people go through it alone. They literally saved my life, and seeing how much I was hurting them was a huge incentive for me to get better, because putting people you love through that is probably one of the worst parts, and probably where most of the guilt of eating disorders come from. Did I ever relapse? No, I didn't. I did worry that I would once I started exercising and eating well again, but I never wanted to go through that again. I never do want to go through that again, and I know I won't, because as much as that year is a blur, I remember that it was hell, and I remember that I wasn't a fraction of myself, and I would never put myself or anyone through that ever again. And I'm going to finish off with this last question, because I like it. It says, are you the happiest you've ever been now? And yes, I am. As I said, I have my days or my weeks where I feel crappy, where I just want to lie in bed and eat crap, mostly during the time of the month, which is currently. But as a whole, I cannot believe the point that I'm at today. And I remember when I was sick, I could never imagine getting to this point where I could live a normal life. I could go out for meals. I could not stress about whether I had to have a rest day or not. I can live like a normal person, and that seemed like such a far reach. And if you're going through an eating disorder right now, I know that it feels like you're in this hole, and it feels never ending, but it can end, and it will end. And take it day by day. Don't rush yourself. Don't push so hard to be perfect. It's probably what got you where you are in the first place. Be patient with yourself and be kind to yourself, and stop thinking about food as a punishment or a reward. Food is fuel, and you deserve fuel, and you deserve to feel good about yourself, and you will get to a point where you're happy again and you can laugh again, and it's the best thing in the world. I get emotional. To anyone that has helped me to get to the point where I'm at today, I'm so grateful. Like, I would be lost without my family and my best friend Marnie, who we went through hell throughout it, and we lost touch for a while because of it, and I'm so happy that she's back in my life now. And to Dean, who on a daily basis deals with my body issues and makes me feel like the most beautiful girl in the world when I look like a drowned rat. Every single person who has helped me to get to the point where I am today, where I wake up and I'm like, life's pretty great. Thank you. And to anyone who needs help right now, reach out. the best thing you can do is admit it to yourself and then talk to someone else. I promise you, getting help is not weak. It does not make you a failure. That's what I used to think, and that was the biggest misconception of my life. I would not be where I am today if I had not got help. So I'm going to leave some links down below to hotlines, to websites you can check out, to things that helped me when I was sick, and I really hope that you can check them out and they can help you too. But for now, I'm sorry if this was a marathon. I hope I can edit it down to a semi-decent amount of time, and I hope it wasn't too boring. Let me know what you guys want to see next. Thank you so much again for all the love and support you sent my way. I am eternally grateful, and have a beautiful day.